Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we work out the little kinks that are occurring in our last and final conversation in our 5-part series on staying connected. I'm Stephanie Dibishep, and I'm the executive director of Plan Institute. And I'm so thankful that you took time out of your day today to join us in this conversation and today's discussion, which is about tapping into the caring and kind nature that really exists in us all. Just a reminder, in case there are some newcomers to today's conversation, Plan Institute and Plan are family-led and driven sister organizations, and we really focus on ensuring that everybody has the opportunity to live their best life. And while there are naturally various elements to that, one key aspect is being part of and being connected to our community, and that is what we're focusing on for this series. A couple of quick notes about today. As you'll notice, everybody is muted. So please do use the chat box if you have any questions. We really want this to be a dialogue, and we'll be saving the last about 20 minutes or so to address those questions. And again, for those of you who joined us last time, we were together. If you have any stories, we would love for you to share them. This will be sort of the nature of our conversation today, and we would be thrilled if you would be willing to share some of your stories of kindness with us all. After the webinar today, you'll be redirected to a brief and optional survey. And within that survey, we'll be sharing a link to a platform. And we invite you to sort of continue this discussion after the webinar. And we'll be posting some guiding questions just to get the discussion going, as well as any resources, links, and a copy of this recording will be linked within that platform. One final note is that Plan Institute operates a free disability planning helpline, which can support questions on a variety of topics, such as staying connected to the registered disability savings plan, the disability tax credit, setting up trusts, estate planning, empowered decision making, and more. And so we really would welcome your call. Have your friends, family, those you support, yourself, connect with us. We're here to help, and we would really love to hear from you. The number is on the screen, and there will also be a place within the survey that I mentioned where you can indicate if you would like one of our helpline advisors or a team member reach out to address any of the questions you may have. And with that, I would like to welcome Rebecca Pauls and Shelley Nessman, who are both with Plan, and they're facilitating the series in today's final conversation, along with Nicholas and Rachelle Czerwinski and Alexander Magnussen. So without further ado, over to you all.
Hello,
everybody.
Thanks so much, Steph, and thanks everyone for being here today. Can you believe this is our 5th week in a row doing these conversations? It kind of feels like time has gone very quickly and then sometimes very slow. And many of you have been with us, right, since the beginning when we talked about not waiting to be asked. We had Karen and Risha talking with Shelley and I, and what a time that was. Thinking back to Jack Pearpoint with us, telling stories of Judith and how she really showed us what it means to make it a team effort and has inspired the work that we do at Plan and build support networks. We also talked about the latest tech and how that helps, and had our friends from Toronto, Irfan and Yona and Victor join us. And then last week with Shelley and Kathy and Shelley DeCoste, another wonderful conversation. And I know that today will be just as special. I'm so happy to have with us today Shelley Nessman, Alexander Magnussen, and Rachelle Czerwinski. And I'll just give you guys each a chance to say hello. We're today talking about kindness and how the majority of people care and want to help. So Shelley, maybe you can get us started just telling us a little bit about yourself and what kindness means to you.
Sure. It was so lovely to sit this morning just to spend a little bit of time thinking about some of the kindnesses that people have extended to me. And what I realized is that I physically can feel, even with things I was thinking about that happened 25, 30 years ago, I can still physically feel that feeling of being seen and being cared for by somebody, sometimes by people who I didn't even know that well. A couple of my favorite stories are My most current kindness story has to do with toilet paper. And so when COVID hit, as you all remember, back in March, you know, there wasn't there wasn't a square of toilet paper to be found anywhere. I just kept shopping, and it wasn't like I wanted to get a whole bunch. I just wanted a little bit for my family. And so I put the word out on, I just put a little sort of word out on Facebook, you know, what should I do? And I had probably 15 people in my circles offer to bring me toilet paper, even one roll. I've got an extra roll. I'll bring it over for you. And yeah, it was so amazing, right? And so, and then in the end, one of my friends came and delivered like a package of toilet paper. So it was kind of funny, but it was also very touching to know that if in those moments where I didn't know what I was going to do if I didn't have any. I mean, I guess it wasn't life ending, but people stepped up. And the other just real quick story is one that happened to me. It's one of those stories that happened many years ago when my daughter, who's now 30, my daughter was maybe about 3. And we were living on our own, and we were going through some fairly hard circumstances. And I wasn't all that public about it, but you know, the people at my work were aware of what was going on. And one evening, like one of those cold, stormy evenings in February, there was a knock at the door, and there was a woman that I worked with standing there, and she had 2 big bags full of groceries, staple kind of groceries like rice and flour and all those kinds of things. And she just said, "Oh, I just wanted to bring you a housewarming gift." She just she knew we were kind of going through stuff. Hey, Nicholas. And so, but she just brought stuff that we could use, and she knew it would be helpful, but didn't make a big deal about it. And really, as I talk about it now, again, I can still remember that feeling of just knowing that I was being held by somebody who really cared. Yeah. And we're still friends today, my friend Ruth. So it's another good memory.
Yeah, they sure are. Thanks for sharing that, Shelley. And hello, Nicholas. Thank you for joining us on our call today. Everyone, I'm happy to introduce you to Nicholas, who's Rachelle's son. And maybe, Rachelle, you and Nicholas could introduce each other and talk about the way kindness impacts your life.
So yeah, this is Nicholas, and Nicholas still is the greatest teacher I ever had, because I had to learn a lot of things when he came into my life. And now I am one of those people who find it easier to do acts of kindness than to ask for them or receive them. So I'm sure you've come upon people like that. Maybe you are one of those people yourself. I've always kind of find it more difficult to ask people for favors or for help, but I'm always touched when people kind of know that I need help. And so one of my recent experiences was one of our neighbors, a couple, a husband and wife, they put a slip of paper under our door, and it was a really nice letter. And it came, they put it inside the mail slot there, and so there was a note, and there was a package of masks, and the note said, "Look, we in this together. If you guys ever really need anything, please just ask. This is our phone number. Do you want us to do some shopping for you? So anything." And it just blew my mind, and so that was really cool.
That is really, really helpful, and especially such a practical thing going through COVID like we are now. Thanks, Rachelle. Alex, can you introduce yourself and talk a bit about kindness?
Hi, I'm Alexander. I work for CLBC and CBI Consultings, and I guess for me, I'm again, like Rachelle, I love giving kindness. I think that being able to give kindness is like such a gift for myself and that person. Even simple as I really like if I see somebody on the bus or something like that, I'll get I'll get up and give them my seat, and I'm always like, oh, would you like my seat? Would you like my seat? Would you like my seat? And to me, that's very fulfilling. I've received a lot of help in my years with having autism, where you take a lot of help. You take a lot of help. Where now I can give a lot of help. Where I have my license now, I can be that driver to be like, hey, can I drive you to the store? With COVID, now, I can be that person to be like, hey, I'll go get you some groceries, or, I'll get you toilet paper, and stuff like that. So I find that asking for help is difficult. I'm very independent, and I thrive on being independent. So asking for help is not one of my strong suits. But I have people in my life that know, okay, he could use some help even though he's not asking. So which is, just warms my heart, because they just love me, and I just love them, and it's awesome to and they know that, if they need me, I'm there for them, and
Yeah.
it's awesome.
That's really cool, and what a gift to have people in your life who can pick up on what you need, and just kind of naturally be there for you. That's a great story. Thanks, Alex. You each talked about how it's easier to give than it is to receive, or it's easier to talk about someone else being kind than to recognize ourselves as people are kind. Just an open question to each of you. Why do you think that is?
I think that there's a few different reasons. I think one is that we're kind of programmed that way in society, not to kind of like toot our own horns, kind of thing, where it's not, if you be like, yeah, I'm the kindest person ever, and even in a super genuine way, you're gonna think, oh, okay, maybe that person is doing it for the wrong reasons, or maybe they're just doing, maybe they're just like full of themselves, and maybe they didn't even help out. So I think it's kind of like programmed into us to kind of like, not announce if and when we're helpful.
Good point. What
Yeah,
do you
for me, I think since I was young, I've always found that whenever I had a problem, whenever I felt sad, down, for me, helping others was really what helped me go through those hard moments. Because then I would kind of forget. I would help others, and I would realize, oh my God, I mean, they are going through something much more difficult than me, and somehow it has always helped me to do that, to use helping others as almost as a therapy whenever I needed help, I guess.
I agree with that 100%.
Right, and then I guess it kind of just stayed with me. I lost I don't have the habit of asking for help. I am more in the habit of helping others because it also helps me.
I love that. You're both kind of reminding me of some of the conversations I've been having with families and people who have diverse abilities, who talk about, there's a couple of big ideas. One is you should never ask for help because you need to be independent. You have to do all these things by yourself. And so that's a kind of programming I think that lots of people get.
Oh,
and then,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
And then, tell me what you think about this one, because the other one is the idea that, you don't want to be seen as kind of like a needy person, or that someone who's, can't help themselves, like that kind of thing. And so there's a lot of pressure, I think, in some ways for people.
Yeah, and if I can, I'd like to actually expand on that, because I live on my own right now, and I hope to live on my own forever. But the reason why I say I hope to live on my own forever is because, it's one of those things that if you ask for too much help, maybe you need a little more support than you really want, or sorry, they'd be like, oh, well, maybe he needs more support, maybe he needs to live in a home share or in a group home, or have more people like come in and live with me. And it's like, no. So it's one of those things where I try I try not to ask for help because I've lived in 22 different placements since I was 19 and I'm only 32. So I don't want this to be another placement. I want this to be a home where I live and I can stay and it's mine. And so asking for help there's a real unsaid, unpurposeful pressure.
Kind of risky is the
It
word I
is.
was thinking. I was thinking
It
it's
is.
a risk. Yeah.
It is a risk. Because if you need too much help, oh, okay, well, we have places for that.
Well, thanks for telling us about that, Alex. I know that now you have your own apartment and you're really pleased with the way that things are going. I wonder if you might share, how do you work together with your team to share about what you need? Like, how did you get to this place where you're not afraid to ask for help and you have people who can pick up on what you need?
Who says I wasn't still afraid? Yeah, no, it's something that it's like PTSD, you kind of battle with stuff like that forever, right? For a long time, right? And I've been with my team has been around me for so long that they kind of can pick up nonverbal cues of, oh, well, maybe something's up, or there'll be like a text message of like, hey, how do you do this? And then they'll be like, hey, do you need help? And I'll be like, no. So it's one of those things where it's like it's still something I'm working on. Like I'm working on a balance between, because like I was so dependent on everyone. Like I wouldn't cross a street without someone. I would just stay home. I would have such anxiety if like my roommate left the house for like an hour to go to the grocery store. I'd be like, okay, now what do I do? Where now it's, no one's coming to check on me, and I love it. No one's coming to, if I want to go to Walmart, I'll get in my car, my very new car, and I will go to Walmart myself. I will be that provider for myself. I will be able, it was even, I remember I was still an adult when I was like, I wonder if somebody's going to come and like shut my light off and tuck me in, and and then I'm just like, oh my goodness. And now now it's like, no one's going to do that. If you want your light shut off, you don't call someone down and be like, hey, I want to talk to you for a second. Oh, can you shut that all off when you leave? You don't do that, right? So it's like, I take care of my home. I clean my home, and it is one of the biggest accomplishments next to driving I've ever had. And it was a long 13 or something year process of learning, one, that I have the right, and two, that I have the confidence and the skills. Because if you don't have the skills, then obviously, right? But it was a long ups and downs and all the rounds, and that's why there's 22 different placements. So that's why so it wasn't just a up, it was an up and down and all around and sideways and forwards and backwards and all that stuff.
So what do you have to say to people who maybe in the same boat as you were a couple of years ago, who were wanting to be more independent and wanted the help of other people, wanted to get a team together, but they don't know what to do? Where should they start?
I would start with yourself. What are your goals? If you want to move out, what are the skills you need to learn to do that? Like I needed to learn how to cook. I needed to learn how to clean. I needed to have some knowledge with money. I do have, it's interesting. I'll let certain people help me with certain things, and I won't let somebody help me with something that somebody else will help me with for a reason that I don't really know as I'm speaking. So it's really interesting because like, yeah, certain stuff I'll be like, okay, I got to call this person, and then it'll be a different thing, and I can't call that person, I'll call this person, so it's like I said, you got to learn the skills, and then you have to have that confidence, because if you don't have that confidence, how is anyone else supposed to have confidence in you if you can't? You got to make a plan and just keep going for it. And you're going to fall and you're going to pick back up, and you're going to fall again and then pick back up. And it's going to be constant. And then it's going to just make that living on your own that much sweeter, or whatever your goal is, that much sweeter because you fought so hard to do it.
Wow. I think I need a pep talk like that every morning, Alex.
I gotcha.
Thanks for sharing that. That's great. Rachelle, I'm also thinking about some of the stories that you've shared with me about your life and Nicholas's as you were growing up. And I'm really aware that there's lots of parents who have things that they need and want and don't even have the energy to reach out or to ask for help. And especially during this pandemic, all of the things that were challenges to start with are now being amplified. I wonder if if any stories come to mind or reflections on being a mom throughout the years and even now.
When thinking about asking for help, I think one of the first things that may stop people is that asking for help somehow makes you vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So it shows that you need something from someone. And then, so it makes you vulnerable. You have a child with special need, that already makes you vulnerable. And the other thing is this fear of rejection. What if the person you ask for help says, oh, sorry, I cannot help you? So then you have to deal with those two huge things where you took it out of yourself, like you don't really want to ask for help, but okay, you needed to ask for help this time. And then the person or the group say, oh, we're really sorry, we cannot do that. So, it's such a complicated thing. And also the culture, I think, in North America is really about being independent at whatever cost. That's what they push you comes 18, you need to leave the house, you need to go on your way, you're out of the door. And I'm coming from a different culture. And for me, it has always been a little bit surprising, like, oh my gosh, my child is just 18 and he has to leave the house. And so there are some things about balancing the need for community and the drive for independence. And I'm wondering, I'm sure there is a balance there. So as I said before, I don't really like to ask for help, but sometimes I felt, okay, I need help. I don't drive. I used to drive for 15 years. I had a car accident. I lost my confidence. I stopped driving. And there had been times where I really, needed somebody to drive me somewhere. And so, okay, I found a few friends and, usually they say, okay, I can't today, but maybe after tomorrow would be better. And would that work for you? And so I ask people for things I need. I have to do with it that sometimes it's not the right day. It's not a good time. It's not. And so, of course, then I'm pushed like, okay, I really need to get driving again. This is ridiculous. I should go back to driving. Like Alex said, okay, what do I need? I need to refresh my driving skills. I need to do this. I need to learn. I need to go on ICBC site. And so, there are goals. And but at the same time, I think sometimes it's nice to need somebody. I think sometimes it's nice to feel that like, oh, I need to find somebody who could drive me. And sometimes you fall upon people who would just be so delighted that you ask, right? Who have just been waiting for you to ask, and they've been seeing you, kind of struggling with Nicholas, walking down the road and didn't dare to come for help, because again, that's another thing with Western culture. Some people are, they have difficulty asking if you need help. So they're also kind of waiting for you, so it's this kind of catch-22 thing. You are hesitant to ask for help, and the other person is also hesitant to ask you if you need help because they don't want to offend you. They don't want to, and so it's such an interesting thing. So So I think I think what we should arrive at is this kind of social helping bubble, where there would be a circle of people around you where you know that if you need help, they will be more than happy to help you. And you also know the opposite, and then the other way too, like those people would know if they need help, you would be more than happy to do that for them. So I think during this pandemic, we've been talking about a bubble, a physical bubble. There are people in your bubble, they can come into your house, they can, but I think we need to extend that concept. We should have helping bubbles, you know, we should have this circle of people where we know, where we feel comfortable asking them for help. And that should be true for them too. Like they know if they ask you, that you will really try your best to help them.
I love what you're saying. I think that, you know, I've spent many years doing planning with families and with people, individuals, and you know, we always are thinking about who's in your bubble, who, you know, or who might you want to invite in. And so when we're often with plan, when we're talking to people about creating a little network, you know, a group of people around you, we can be specific about some of the people who we might not even know them, but we want to pull someone in who can help with something. Like I know right now, like I would probably want to pull in Alex, like a lot, right? Because you're so willing.
Me too, Alex.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and put you into that bubble.
Yes, come on into our bubble, right?
Sounds good.
So that idea of expanding that, and we do seem like we're in a very unique time. You know, we have this world pandemic where everyone can you remember back to March, right? We were all connecting right away with everyone we knew, and what do you need? And, you know, people were bringing me toilet paper, but we kind of got elevated in some way as a group, as a huge community. And I'd love to see that we could continue to perpetuate that as we could keep having these conversations.
Yeah, I have to share this, that some of one of my friends said, he said, social distancing will keep us safe, but loneliness will kill us.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And so again, right, we need to keep a balance there. So yeah,
so true. Just a couple of other things that I've picked out from the things you guys have been saying. And one is, Rachelle, you were talking about this idea, you know, sometimes we don't ask because we've been rejected, and that, you know, we can physically feel the pain of that rejection when someone says, no, I can't help you, or no, I don't want to help you. And one of the ideas that many years ago families started to talk about with me was this idea of having somebody in your bubble who would be the designated asker, so that it's not always the family member who's maybe making that ask, right? I mean, if it's really feeling like it's something that they just can't face or can't hear another no, like that kind of thing, that there could be someone. And, you know, I know for my own self, it's so easy to ask for other people, right? We've just talked about this, how easy it is to be kind for others. And so it's one of the things I often talk to people when they call me on the helpline about isolation and, you know, how do I even start reaching out? And I talk to people about, do you have like just one person who might help you to invite other people in? Because when someone says no to me, I'm like, okay, I'm sure you've got a good reason for that. And then I can move on to the next person. So that idea of allies could be a really important tool.
I think you're right, Shelley, and it's definitely a part of connecting with each other. This conversation is also making me think about what you talked about, being that we're more individual and we depend on ourselves rather than depending on each other. And I think in many of our communities here in Canada and North America, we've become individualistic. We depend on ourselves, or we buy everything that we need. We sometimes say that we don't have to ask a neighbor for a cup of sugar anymore because the stores are open 24/7. We don't need on that practical level, but that leaves us lonely and disconnected. And so I want to live in a culture, in a community where we talk about what we need without the fear of rejection, without the fear of losing our independence. And I think a lot of us keep them to ourselves when we need something, and think it like you said, Rachelle, makes us vulnerable or less strong. And I wonder, through the rest of our time, if we can talk about what are the practical things that we can do for each other to make it okay for us to be ourselves, to make it okay that however we are feeling today, whatever we need, that we can say to someone else, this is how you could help me. Because this conversation is based on the assumption that people want to help.
Right.
But there's a barrier that's keeping us. You guys talked about it. People don't want to ask for help. People want to help. There's this invisible barrier that keeps us not connected. But we can change that. We have that power to change it. And I wonder if any of you have ideas about practical things that we can do to help each other be more of themselves, and just create that culture where we're not afraid to talk about what we need.
That's a great question. I'll have to think about that for a second.
Okay, Rebecca, say that again. Say the question again.
Like, my question, or what I'm thinking about, is if there's practical things that we can do for our friends and our relationships to make them feel more comfortable to talk about what they need and what they want.
Okay. Well, I guess the first step is to let people know that we need help. And that already is a really great step in itself, because as Alex and myself said, it's hard for us to ask for help. I don't know, could I write something on my Facebook page? I really need help in this, and I guess on the group page on the Facebook, it's public, or you tell it to all your friends. It's not as like, you know, it's not as personal, if I can put it that way. Like you send it out there, like Shelley with a toilet paper story, and so if 10 people answer positively, then that's good, right? If she gets no answer at all, I guess she's like, oh my gosh, you know, I put out that question and I got no answer at all. What is going on here, right? And so you know, I think I would feel comfortable asking a question on Facebook, like, I really need someone to drive me to New Westminster. You know, I'm quite, you know, it's quite okay for me to pay for gas and etc. and something like that. So I would say that probably most people would be willing to help if I put the request very clearly first. What do I need? Where do I want to go? If I take the example of driving me somewhere, because I don't drive and it will be just too complicated on transit. I'll have to take 4 buses and etc. So I think most people would probably like to know exactly, okay, what is it that I need? And then it will probably make it easier for them to say, okay, I'm free that day, no problem, give me a call, and yeah, I'll take you. So I think if the request is clear, and maybe also, like, it's not an open-ended thing that, okay, I need someone to help me with errands. So I guess most people, everyone is busy, right? So they probably come back to me and say, okay, when do you think? Or, you know, when are you thinking of doing that? At what time of the day? Or I have kids at home. I won't be able to do that if it's after 3 p.m. or something like that. So I suppose I suppose we need to help people help us, right?
Yeah, we talked about that in our session about little things that matter. And when people call and say, do you need anything? How can I help you? If you can be clear and concise, then it makes it easy for people to help and get involved.
Right. It's true. We also, it harkens back to the very first webinar when Karen said, I had to get clear about what my needs were. So your idea of clarity is like, those tips are great, right? Like, first of all, finding a way, what way to ask. Is it on Facebook? Is it in a text? Is it by phone? Like, whatever you're comfortable with to start. And then for me, it was practice. It was practice in having some humility and just accepting something when someone showed up, you know, to help. But that idea of, I would even say, like, for some people, they have a little script about how they might ask, and how they might respond if someone says no, and how, you know, and so that they have just some words to lean on, or you know, a way to kind of get through it, and then practice a little bit, because it just does take, I think it just takes experiences. You know, Alex, I'm sure that you feel the same way, just as, you know, through your adult life, you've built those experiences through your life.
Definitely. Yeah. It's sometimes it's easier, like it's having a support system around me and having many, like several people, because like I was saying, that, you know, there's some people that I'll accept help from this person for this, and then this person with the other thing. So that is also very helpful. I totally agree with being specific. Like, I would like, oh, I ran out of milk. If you're running to the store, could you please pick me up some milk? It's very specific, because if it's like, if somebody goes, oh, do you want groceries? I'm like, well, okay, now do I need groceries? Do I want groceries? How much do I burden them with, like 5 bags of groceries or 1 bag of groceries? Okay, then, you know, so it's a lot of pressure. Whereas like, okay, I need milk and this type of bread. I'll take a picture of it, so then you know what kind of bread I want. It's very, and then it's like, oh yeah, no problem. I'm at the store anyways. I know somebody that goes to the store every Sunday morning, and I know, and she goes almost every week. If you need anything, let me know. Now that I have my car, I'm going to go to her and go, do you need anything? Because, you know, like, I can do that, right?
Yeah.
So it's
and I think this all ties in together, the kindness and helping people.
Yeah.
We can choose to live our life acting on our impulses to be kind, and every time we're going to the store, we can think, is there someone else in my neighborhood that might need something from the store, and pick up the phone or knock on the door and ask. Or thinking outside of COVID times, if we're planning a party, if we're going out for dinner or going for a walk in the park, asking, is there someone else who might like to be involved, or someone else that I can invite?
Or bring food back to.
Yeah.
I live in an apartment building, and that's actually a really fantastic idea. Actually, that just like came up to me. Is like being like, because a lot of the people in my building are older, and you know, they're not you know, maybe they're, you know, I don't know. Anyways, so it's like, hey, or I'm going to the store. What can I get you? Or, you know, you can even give specific examples. It'll be like, oh, I'm gonna go get a couple snacks, like some chips and maybe a soda. Can I bring you? And then they'd be like, no, but could you bring me this? Or, yes, I would love that. I was just thinking of that. You know, little things, you know, like chips, you know, it's not the actual chips that is what they care about. It's that you cared enough to ask them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and those are the practical things that we're talking about that come to mind first, but even checking in on people, or being kind and saying, you know what, I noticed that you haven't been as involved lately. Is everything okay? Is everything going on? I think that that's a really clear act of kindness, when we care and we think about someone, and then we act on that, and we call and connect. I just want to bring in the participants who are on our call. We've got several people joining us, and just remind you that if you have any questions for any of the panelists, you can put them into the chat box. And we have about 12 minutes left, so we'll be happy to take some of those questions and continue the conversation that way. Steph, is there anything that's come in?
Yeah, there's been such lovely stories, and you know, thank you so much to everybody who has really shared the ways in which you've received kindness, or the way in which sort of kindness is framed within your life. It's been so wonderful to read through, and there have been a couple of things that popped up that really resonate and are in line with what you guys have been talking about, and some great thoughts. It really touches on what you guys were just talking about specific acts of help, of asking for help. So someone mentioned that for them, what's really been helpful is really framing every offer to help somebody as a specific type of help. So not saying, do you need help with that? Is there anything you need help with? But instead, removing the burden from that individual to be able to articulate what it is that they might need in that moment, and instead extending a very specific type of help. Alex, as you said, I'm going to the store, I'm going to get some chips, but I am throwing on a load of laundry. Can I take, your laundry to do as well? Or I'm making a stir fry for dinner. This person indicated, can I bring you over some? And so really looking for those opportunities to offer specific help that helps people receive that help without sort of burdening them, which is, I know was talked about in another, one of the other conversations we had. Someone brought it up. I can't remember exactly who, I think it might've been Karen, but really making it easy for people to accept a very specific act of help or kindness was something that was reflected in a lot of the conversations and touched on by a lot of those who are joining us today. Another aspect that I wanted to share was about the sort of the law of reciprocity that somebody brought up, and that, in order for someone to give, someone else needs to receive graciously, and that by asking for help, that, this person pointed out that I'm giving someone else the opportunity to give if I'm asking for help, and that perspective really helped to frame it up for them. And I'm wondering if you guys have any thoughts about how to sort of incorporate that into our lives, and how this plays into the conversation we're having today.
Rachelle, go ahead.
Yeah, what Stephanie just said reminded me of a quote that says, sometimes it takes just as much generosity to accept an act of kindness than as much as giving it. So, so Stephanie, you mentioned reciprocity, and I think it just says it. I think one has to be generous in both ways. Some people have difficulties accepting acts of kindness, and some people are not generous enough to give acts of kindness. So I think we can all work on living in a kinder world, and where we feel okay in both sides of kindness, the ones who gave it and the ones who receive it.
And I think it's really important to remember that even for myself, I think there are times in my life where I am 100% able to do all kinds of things and offer, and then there are other times in my life where I just haven't had the energy or the resources to be able to do it. And so I try to remember that also, if somebody's saying I can't, or, if they're not, just not able to, or, not willing to, whatever it is, but that's okay, because we're all there in our lives at some point or another. So that's another, that's another kindness we can extend, right, to any person.
Right. And I think it is one thing this pandemic has taught all of us, the world over, is that we do need each other. So we've been living so far in this mind frame that we don't need anybody, that we are very independent, we can take care of ourselves, we can take care of our families, and then something like that happens, and it's a tiny virus, and it throws everything out, like, all those things we took for granted, right?
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I'm kind of grateful, like, it kind of put us back to what's really important in our lives, and that is each other.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. The people in our lives is like most important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interdependence, right?
Yeah, interdependence.
It's not about independence, it's about interdependence.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that just one last little thing for me would be, we never know, and I know we've talked about this through this series, but we never know the effect that something we do or say might have in terms of the way it might ripple out. And so that, if I'm doing one thing, I had an experience last month where I was feeling quite down. We have these up and down days, and a friend of mine just popped in to say, hey, how are you doing, on Facebook? And then, just had a nice conversation. And at the end I said, well, I was having a really rough day, but just talking to you really helped me. And it, you know, it really struck them that, wow, I wasn't, it, you know, I just wanted to connect. It's part of what I wanted to do. And I'm glad it helped, you know. So that ripple effect can be, we just never know.
Yeah,
I agree.
There, so, you know, Shelley, you mentioned that balance way back at the beginning of the conversation, so a balance between asking for help and independence. Alex, you know, you touched on it being, you know, almost risky to express that vulnerability. And we've heard that from some of those, you know, of you joining the conversation today. And I'm wondering what your thoughts, Alex and Rachelle and Nicholas, on how do you find that balance? How do you ask for the help that you need while still safeguarding, you know, against that fear, which can be so real for many of us as we sort of express the way in which we might need, you know, a helping hand, or what can feel as some pretty intense vulnerabilities.
For me, I guess I make sure that, is there any possibility that I can do this myself? And then if the answer is no, then I ask for what I need. And then once I got it, and then it's like, oh, thank you so much, I'm good now. I think that, yeah, just, it's still a learning curve for me. So if there's any advice, I would love to have it too. So I don't, you know, I'm always learning, right? I'm still learning with this independent stuff, and I'm still learning that it's not have to be fully independent, and there is interdependency. And it's a new word that I've learned for just not very long. So it's kind of opened up my world of like, okay, that's very interesting, and can I apply that to my life?
yeah. I think it's we all learning, right? And like Alex, I had said before, I find it hard to ask for help. I find it much easier to provide help and to ask if somebody needs help. But I think I would like it if someone, like what Shelley shared, like if someone sent me a short message on Facebook, or like asking how you doing, and do you need any help? You know, I know you don't drive. Can I take you to do some errands? Or so I think then I'd really jump on it, like, oh yeah, wow, you know, how did you know? You know, I really needed to go to Costco and stuff like that. And so so I say for me, it's hard to ask, and I should sometimes. But when someone spontaneously would come or send me a shot and ask me, oh, you know, I'm free this Saturday, I have 2 hours, is there anything I can do for you? So I'm sure I'll find something to do with that person for that Saturday 2 hours. Yeah. I could tell her, look, you know, let's go for coffee. You know, I need that. You know, we need to go somewhere for coffee. I haven't been anywhere with anybody for coffee in 3 months. So that would be great. Yeah.
I miss that too. Just going into a coffee shop and, you know, meeting somebody for coffee, and I miss that. I miss a lot of little things with people.
Yeah, a lot of little things with people. You just said it, Alex. Those little things, it appears, are just as important as the big things.
Almost more. Yeah, it's a toss-up. You know, I think there would be a big debate on it.
I think so. I want to say thank you, Alex and Rachelle and Shelley and all of the guests that we've had on these conversations. I feel like the hour goes by quickly and we just barely scratch on the surface of what we're talking about. And I appreciated our conversation today talking about the ways that we can extend kindness and be more open to receiving kindness. And I also think about people who might not agree with our sentence that says that the majority of people care and want to help. There are people who aren't experiencing that right now. And I think that as we move forward during this pandemic and as things begin to open up, I know for myself, I'm committed to being kind, to showing the care and doing the ideas that I have that might help another person, recognizing the responsibility that I have with the energy that I have and other things that I can do to support other people and create a more connected community. I know with all of the things going on in the world right now, that's just very much on my heart. And I feel like even with the 5 of us, we could continue to talk about that, but our time is coming to an end. I think Steph has some final comments, but I wanted to remind everyone who is watching this on Facebook Live and who's joined us that we've also set up an online dialogue page that's outside of social media, and it's on the same topics that we've talked about, these 5 big ideas of staying socially connected. So there's some questions and conversation starters in there, and while these 5 webinars have come to an end, we really want to keep this conversation going. So in the email that you receive from Plan Institute, there will be a link to a program called Teachable, where there's several discussions there, and I pop in every day to see if people are sharing, and I hope that we can continue this conversation that way.
Thank you, Rebecca. I learned a lot too. Thanks, Alex, and thanks to the panelists that have been watching the chat as well. There are lots of interesting stuff going on there that people have shared. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a great pleasure, and it's always nice to connect with people.
It is. It's been so wonderful to have such a variety of voices and ideas and minds contribute to this conversation that's just the tip of the iceberg, you know, as Rebecca touched on, about how we can truly stay connected to one another throughout, you know, this incredibly challenging time. And just wanted to extend a sincerest thanks to each and every one of you who joined us today and throughout the series. And then, of course, Alexander, Nicholas for a brief moment, Rachelle, and of course, Shelley and Rebecca for this wonderful conversation, and to each of you who contributed your thoughts and stories and shared your perspectives. We are deeply grateful. A reminder, if you want to speak to Rebecca or Shelley or any one of the Plan Institute Helpline Advisors, please don't hesitate to reach out. Pop us an email, fill in the survey at the end, give us a call. We'd love to connect. And this was, as Rebecca mentioned, you know, the final in our series, and we do hope that you enjoyed it. I know I speak on behalf of the entire Plan Institute and Plan team to say that we really have enjoyed this time, and thank you for joining us in this conversation about staying connected. We hope that, you know, we can continue to stay connected to one another even after this series has ended. So until the next time, whenever that may be, we thank you all so much, and please continue to stay safe and stay connected.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Rachelle. Thank you, Alex.
Bye.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.